When you're trying to put together a puzzle, one of the first things you do is you pull out the box so you can look at the picture on the front and know what it is you're trying to assemble. Because there's a lot of pieces and they kind of fit together and some of the colors on the pieces are the same, but if you don't understand the larger picture, you're likely going to make some mistakes until you get to the very end. And when we're trying to understand the signs of the times and all of the events leading up to the second coming, it can be really hard to understand what order they occur in and what context and how they connect to everything else. And so if we want to know these signs, it'd help to find an overall picture that shows us the main events. And section 45 of the Doctrine and Covenants does that. I spent about 3 years obsessively studying everything in the scriptures I could find about the end times. And after about my 20th read through of section 45, I realized that that section is different from many other sections and chapters in the scriptures because it's chronological. It's chronological, and we can know that with some certainty because it uses language like, and then this will happen, and then this will happen, but before this, that. And it's not totally straightforward, but it's the clearest thing I can find anywhere. It's so helpful to understand the major events in order, because with them, you can start to go to the other scriptures and plug things in where they fit. So today we're going to go through section 45, and we're going to look at what it says and establish a timeline that we can trust. In section 45, the Lord is recounting when he talked to the 12 apostles in Jerusalem. They had asked him, what's the end of the world going to be like? What's the sign of your coming? How are we going to know? And so as he starts off talking about that, he starts with something that's pertinent to their lives, and he tells them about the coming destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans in 70 AD. He lets them know that Jerusalem is going to be totally wiped out and that they are going to be scattered as a people. So let's start in verse 24. And this I have told you concerning Jerusalem, and when that day shall come, what day is he talking about? The destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. When that day shall come, shall a remnant be scattered among the nations, but they shall be gathered again. Okay, so pretty straightforward so far. Israel will be completely scattered, and Jerusalem will be taken away as well, and then someday later they're going to be gathered. Verse 25, but they shall be gathered again, but they shall remain. Remain what? Well, remain in their scattered condition. So they're going to be scattered, and then they're going to be gathered, and they're going to remain there when? Until what happens? Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So far we know, scattering and a gathering, and the gathering is going to occur at the times of the Gentiles being fulfilled. So how are we going to know when the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled and they're going to be gathered? Well, he's going to tell us. In that day, in other words, the times of the Gentiles being fulfilled in the gathering, shall be heard of wars and rumors of wars, and the whole earth shall be in commotion. Men's hearts shall fail them, and they shall say that Christ delayeth his coming until the end of the earth. And the love of men shall wax cold, and iniquity shall abound. Okay, so that whole list of things there is what it's going to be like in the days when the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled, and then the gathering takes place. Okay, now that we know what the times of the Gentiles is going to be like at the end, he's going to jump back in time and show us what the beginning is going to be like. And when the times of the Gentiles is come in, a light shall break forth among them that sit in darkness, and it shall be the fullness of my gospel. So the restoration is what begins the times of the Gentiles, and it ends in a day when there's a lot of bad stuff going down. So now he's going to give us more details about what it's like during the times of the Gentiles after the restoration. But they receive it not, for they perceive not the light, and they turn their hearts from me because of the precepts of men. And in that generation, when the gospel is rejected, shall the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. This next verse gives us some insight into what that time period is going to be like, even further than the list we have so far. And there shall be men standing in that generation, and again, that's the generation where the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled, that shall not pass until they see an overflowing scourge, for a desolating sickness shall cover the land. Okay, so it's talking about people still being there that haven't passed, and then they're going to see a plague, which seems to indicate there may be somewhat of a gap between this. Like this whole times of the Gentiles wrapping up thing is going to happen not on a certain day, obviously, but in a general time period. And the people who are alive when this happens will be older, and then there's going to be some massive plague. So, is this desolating sickness COVID? Well, let's take a look here.
Okay. What's that? Desolating.
No. Verse 32, but my disciples shall stand in holy places and shall not be moved. But among the wicked men shall lift up their voices and curse God and die. All right, so what does this mean? Metaphorically, if we're standing in holy places, it means that we're righteous and we're not going to stop being righteous. We're going to be consistent. But literally, if it says that we're not going to be moved, then it seems to me that there are certain communities and places where the saints have gathered, and they're going to stay put somewhat. And there shall be earthquakes also in diverse places, and many desolations, yet men will harden their hearts against me, and they will take up the sword one against another, and they will kill each other. So these desolations are going to be so bad that there's going to be total anarchy. This is really going to be ugly. And now, when I, the Lord, had spoken these words unto my disciples, they were troubled. And I said unto them, be not troubled, for when all these things shall come to pass, ye may know that the promises which have been made unto you shall be fulfilled. Did you catch how significant that was? When you see all these things, all that stuff I just told you, that's when you know that the gathering of Israel is going to take place. And the Father's promise to gather his people back and establish them will finally happen. Now wait a minute, Kenneth, haven't we been gathering scattered Israel since 1830? And why does the prophet talk about it in General Conference? It seems like whatever we've done so far is a prelude to the gathering of Israel. It seems clear that there's more to come later. We've started the process, but the big event hasn't happened yet. And maybe there's certain stages to this. Like for right now, since 1830, maybe we've mostly been gathering Ephraim. So the big stuff is yet to come. There's so many exciting things coming. And when the light shall begin to break forth, it shall be with them like unto a parable which I will show you. Ye look and behold the fig trees, and ye see them with your eyes, and ye say, when they begin to shoot forth, that their leaves are yet tender, that summer is now nigh at hand. Okay, so the light breaking forth is the restoration. So when you see the restoration of the gospel, you know that the time of the second coming is nigh at hand, right? Well, hang on, look at the rest of the scripture. Even so it shall be in that day when they shall see all these things. Then shall they know that the hour is nigh. We have to see all these things before the second coming is really nigh. And what's that? All the plagues, all the wars, the desolations. It's going to be very, very bad. And it shall come to pass that he that feareth me shall be looking forth for the great day of the Lord to come, even for the signs of the coming of the Son of Man. Isn't that something? All these things have to happen first, and then we start looking for the signs of the coming of the Son of Man. Okay, so what's that? These are the next events on the timeline. And it looks to me like they're roughly two groupings of different signs. And they shall see signs and wonders, for they shall be shown forth in the heavens above and in the earth beneath. Okay, so this is like the first rough grouping of signs. This is when signs in the heavens are really going to be significant indicators that Jesus is about to show up. All these blood moons we've been having now, they might mean something, I don't know, but they don't mean Jesus is almost here. And before the day of the Lord shall come, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall be turned into blood, and the stars fall from heaven. So all these signs in the heavens begin, and then there's the sun, the moon, and the stars happening. That together looks like it's the signs of the coming of the Son of Man. That's when we know, like, oh, okay, start watching the skies, because he is on his way. He's coming. This is it, people. The rehearsal is over. Okay, back to the current state of Israel here. And the remnant shall be gathered unto this place. Well, sounds like the Jews to me. I mean, and they're there, and they continue to gather. So part of that may already be fulfilled, but verse 44, and then shall they, who? The Jews, shall look for me, and behold, I will come, and they shall see me in the clouds of heaven, clothed with power and great glory, with all the holy angels. And he that watches not for me shall be cut off. But before the arm of the Lord shall fall, an angel shall sound his trump, and the saints that have slept shall come forth to meet me in the cloud. Okay, so look at that. We have the signs in the heavens, the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, the sun and the moon and the stars. And then the Jews are looking for Jesus, and they see him, and he comes down. But before he messes with the wicked, a trumpet sounds, and the first resurrection starts, right? Then let's look at what happens next. Wherefore, if ye have slept in peace, blessed are you, for as you now behold me and know that I am, even so shall ye come unto me, and your souls shall live, and your redemption shall be perfected, and the saints shall come forth from the four quarters of the earth. Okay, Verse 47. And then the arm of the Lord falls. So look at that clear chronological language. The Jews see Jesus, the trumpet sounds, the saints rise from the dead, then the arm of the Lord falls upon the nations. And the Lord shall set his foot upon this mount, and it shall cleave in twain, and the earth shall tremble and reel to and fro, and the heavens also shall shake. So Jesus is descending in glory. His foot sets on the Mount of Olivet, and it splits in two, creating a new valley that the Jews rush into. And the Lord shall utter his voice, and all the ends of the earth shall hear it. And the nations of the earth shall mourn, and they that have laughed shall see their folly. And calamity shall cover the mocker, and the scorner shall be consumed. And they that watched for iniquity shall be hewn down and cast into the fire. Then shall they know that I am the Lord, for I will say unto them, These are the wounds with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. I am he who was lifted up. I am Jesus that was crucified. I am the Son of God. So this is significant. The Jews will not know the Messiah until he comes to save them the second time. And then shall they weep because of their iniquities. Then shall they lament because they persecuted their king. And then shall the heathen nations be redeemed. And they that knew no law shall have part in the first resurrection. And it shall be tolerable for them. So the first resurrection is ongoing while the Jews are having this moment with him. And then after the first part's done, the second part with the heathen nations begins. Later on in this chapter, it gives us some details about Zion, which haven't been worked into these major events so far. So we're going to take a look at how those fit in. Verse 65, And with one heart and with one mind gather up your riches, that ye may purchase an inheritance, which shall hereafter be appointed unto you. And it shall be called the New Jerusalem, a land of peace, a city of refuge, a place of safety for the saints of the Most High God. And the glory of the Lord shall be there, and the terror of the Lord also shall be there, insomuch that the wicked will not come unto it. And it shall be called Zion. And it shall come to pass that among the wicked, that every man that will not take up his sword against his neighbor must needs flee unto Zion for safety. Things are going to be so bad in America. You won't be safe in your own house. You won't be safe in your city. You won't be safe in any city, only in Zion. And there shall be gathered unto it out of every nation under heaven, and it shall be the only people that shall not be at war one with another. Okay, when it says wars and rumors of war, is this starting to make more sense to you? Like, we all sat through the Sunday school lessons where we've gone to the scriptures and be like, all right, brothers and sisters, let's make a list of signs of the times on the board here. Let's see, we got wars, rumors of wars. Have these happened? Oh, yeah, yes they have. Okay, check that off. Look, we're that much closer to the second coming. Like, no, guys. Look at the context, Don't just take one puzzle piece out and look at it in abstract and go, war, we've had wars. Then we've had wars since the beginning of time. Take it in the context of the rest of the pieces. This will be the only people that are not at war one with another. So violent, so bad, that you must live there or be constantly fighting your neighbor. And it shall be said among the wicked, Let us not go up to battle against Zion, for the inhabitants of Zion are terrible, wherefore we cannot stand. And it shall come to pass that the righteous shall be gathered out from among all nations, and shall come to Zion, singing with songs of everlasting joy. All right, so the righteous are gathered to Zion. And who are the righteous? The blood of Israel. Those who hear the voice of the Spirit and obey are the true blood of Israel, we know. And so you can't have a gathering of Israel until you have somewhere to gather them to. So it appears that Zion's going to happen, at least in the earlier stages, as people begin to gather back as the world starts to fall apart. So the question is, when does Zion happen? How do we plug this into the timeline we've already gotten from these earlier verses? Well, let's go back to verse 31. And there shall be men standing in that generation. Remember, this is the time when the times of the Gentiles has been fulfilled, right? That shall not pass until they see an overflowing scourge, for a desolating sickness shall cover the land. But my disciples shall stand in holy places, and shall not be moved. But among the wicked men shall lift up their voices, and curse God, and die. And there shall be earthquakes in divers places, and many desolations. Yet men will harden their hearts against me. They will take up the sword one against another, and they will kill each other. Okay, so the era of the times of the Gentiles ending is marked by this list right here: wars, rumors of wars, earth in commotion, men's hearts failing them. Christ, they'll be thinking he's delaying his coming, love of men waxing cold, iniquity abounding, right? it's in this era that then we have a massive plague, and then violence starts escalating. Things are already pretty bad, right? But they're starting to get worse. And they're getting so bad that the saints are standing in holy places and not being moved. That kind of sounds like a little bit of a gathering of some sort, or at least where the saints are now, they're having to stand firm against the world falling apart around their ears. It doesn't seem crazy to think that Zion is going to start to be established right after or right around the time of this desolating scourge. But we know that the violence will start escalating until everyone has to fight their neighbor to survive or go to Zion for safety. So we have a bit of a range. It'll be violent and it'll get worse, and sometime in there Zion will be established. So what could cause things to get that bad where you don't trust your neighbors and you're having to fight them to survive? Well, look at what came before it. I mean, when the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled, it's going to be a time with war and rumor of war and the world in commotion. If we've got natural disasters and political instability with warfare happening, those would set the conditions for violence to start, because it sounds like we're probably not going to have the resources, we're not going to have the economy, and if food starts running out, violence is not many steps behind. Okay, now that we have the whole chart together, let's go over the list of events that lead up to the second coming. We have the times of the Gentiles ending when the Gentiles have rejected the gospel, and by so rejecting Christ, they've turned themselves over to the full powers of hell. Iniquity has abounded. We have sin ravaging the world, and because of that, their hearts are going cold. And as their hearts go cold, war, rumors of wars, violence is the inevitable result. And the earth being pained for the wickedness of men is in commotion. And with everything falling apart around the world, people's hearts are failing. They are giving up hope. And among those that are righteous, they're looking around thinking that Christ is delaying his coming. This is what it's going to be like when the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled. And around this time, we're going to have the desolating sickness and Zion being established in this same era. The disciples will be standing in holy places while the wicked get worse. There will be earthquakes in diverse places and the desolations, and they will continue to harden their hearts and then take up the sword. So we have kind of these two segments, these two chunks, a little bit the lead up to Zion and then during Zion as things continue to get worse. Finally, we get to the signs of the coming of the Son of Man in the sky. And after these signs, we get the big ones that announce his coming, with the sun being dark and the moon turning to blood. He appears, the resurrection starts, he descends and splits the Mount of Olives, the Jews know him, and the wicked are consumed. So isn't section 45 awesome? It gives us a really great overview of all these events and really provides a lot of clarity as to how this all goes down. Now, I'm really wary when people say that they receive something by revelation, because we know there are many spirits abroad in the world to deceive the nations, and we all struggle with personal revelation, and I don't think we should ever just trust somebody because they said, I received revelation about this. So take this with the proper amount of salt it needs, but the scripture's true where it says, teach ye diligently and my spirit shall attend you. As I prepared this script, having already read section 45 so many times, I received new insights and new clarity because I was seeking to teach others. So I can testify that that's a true principle. We receive more light and knowledge as we share the light and knowledge that we have. So there's still way more to look into in this section of the Doctrine and Covenants. And as I went through, I got these extra bits of light and I was like, oh my gosh, this connects to that. And I'm excited to share those with you. And I think once you see them, you'll see oh yeah, okay, this makes sense. Kenneth still might be wrong on this, but I can at least see that this is a pretty reasonable conclusion to come to. I'm not going out too far on any limbs. I'm really trying to stay close to the trunk and look at just what the scriptures say and not make any big intuitive leaps, because I think that's really where we get into trouble. There's a lot of wacky theories out there about the end of the world, and people have kind of turned it into a gospel hobby, and they get so far out on a branch that they fall off and hit their heads, and then they just don't make any sense after that. So it's really important for us to look at the scriptures, look at the words of the prophets, and stick with that. So next time, more of that in more depth.